Ron, I would like to welcome you to this amazing chat that we are having. It was wonderful to find out about your messenger, and we would love to learn more about it. But before we get into it, just tell us a bit about yourself. Where did you grow up? What was your education like? And yeah, would love to know that.
Sure, absolutely. So I grew up in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, central Canada, so in the prairies, very cold and harsh winters and nice summers. But yeah, I grew up there. It was a nice place to grow up. I moved to Calgary when I was about 20 years old, and then moved to Vancouver, Canada, 3 years ago. And yeah, I've been here for 3 years. I love it. I don't see leaving anytime soon. It's a pretty amazing city and really enjoying it here. So I went to school in the Calgary area, did a Bachelor of Management degree, and then also went on to get my CFA charter holder designation, which is Chartered Financial Analyst. It's a worldwide designation, so maybe some of those are in India are familiar with it. But basically, it's to get into corporate finance, and that led me to a career of corporate finance, mergers and acquisitions, and things like that before moving into the tech world.
All right, amazing. And what's the story behind Kinzoo? And starting off with the name itself, how did you guys come up with the idea, the name, the whole concept?
Yeah, absolutely. So Kinzu, the name combines two different concepts. So the first is kinship. So that's where the kin comes from. So basically representing family and the closest of friends. Zoo came about, zoo was always going to be a part of the name because we use an analogy quite often around here. So when we want to introduce our children to animals, we don't drop them off in the wild and let them kind of fend for themselves. So what do we do instead? We take them to the zoo. And why do we take them to the zoo? It's because there's structures in place to keep them safe. So basically, it's an analogy that we use within Kinzoo because what we want to do is set up the proper structures where children can explore freely, but within certain parameters where parents are always going to know they're safe. And our argument is basically too many children are getting onto social media and other platforms that were never designed for kids and don't have the same structures. And I think that what that opens up is basically akin to dropping your child off in the wild and letting them kind of explore around and figure things out for themselves. And there's lots of good, but obviously there's bad things around any corner potentially, and that's really what we're trying to strip away in Kinzu.
Amazing. You touched upon it, but would like to know a little more about it. That how is Kinzoo different than the apps which are out there? The bigger players, Google, Facebook, are also experimenting with Messenger Kids and other smaller apps which are coming out. So how is Kinzoo different to what we have out there, or what your competition would be in a way?
Yeah, definitely. So I think that it all starts with business model, and it starts with where I think there's an issue is if large platforms that were never built with kids in mind, right? So I don't think anybody could argue that Facebook or YouTube were built with kids in mind. They were built really to grow rapidly, to scale very quickly. And I think what's happening is when you try to retrofit that back to children, it creates a bit of an issue with not keeping things as secure and tight as they need to be. And I think that there's been more than one example of, say, Facebook Messenger for kids having some loopholes in it that could be exploited. And I think part of that is, I don't think they're doing it intentionally, but I think what's happening is it's just hard to retrofit a product that's built for mass scale back to something that really needs to be managed and needs to be secure. So in our mind, really what has to emerge is something greenfield. It has to be a new product from the ground up, built with kids in mind and central to it. And that's what we did at Kinzoo. So basically, Kinzoo is designed from the ground up, and we really took a look at all the various workflows that are in the product and put them under a lot of scrutiny and viewed them first as parents and second as a business. So how do I feel about this as a dad? First, and then is that something that we feel can roll into a messenger product? And obviously we want it to scale and grow, but we wanted to do it in a very controlled and managed way where we're not trading off privacy and security for that.
All right, superb interesting. I mean, I work on online safety. That's what I've been doing for the last 5 years. So superbly interested in what are those new features that one can look into. I still haven't seen the Messenger because it's not available in India yet, but would really like to know how have you thought about this safety, let's say structurally, and who
Mhm.
were the people who you had this discussion with while you were developing your product?
Yeah, definitely. So, in terms of the feature set for Kinzoo, we're approaching kind of the beta launch, so really an MVP type of idea, the minimum viable product. And what we have really focused in on Kinzoo is making sure that all the base workflows supporting the messenger are tight and solid, kind of what I spoke about earlier. So really focused in on safety and making sure that we have opportunities to grow the product, but it's going to be in a very managed way. So in terms of the feature set, really we spent a lot of time and effort on the user experience and the user interface because we're dealing with really ideally with growth, we're going to deal with an age range of children. We say 6 and up, all the way to grandparents. And that does introduce, I think, a lot of challenges from a user experience perspective. So we put a lot of thought and care into the design of Kinzoo. Things like we use large icons because we deal with little fingers with children. So there's a lot of care and detail and attention to detail that went into a lot of that design. So really, that might be not be the things that are super obvious to the users when they get on the platform, but we're really trying to serve up a world-class user experience. On top of that, we've got a few features that we think are that we're excited about, and we think that give parents new tools that don't exist today. One of them is called drop-in mode. So we want to give parents the ability to check in and see what their kids are doing on Kinzoo. And basically, I think the way a lot of them do that today is physically looking over the shoulder of their child and or logging into their account and taking a look around. So drop-in mode, for instance, lets the parents drop in on their child at any time on a read-only basis. The child isn't notified, but basically the parent can take a look around, view the conversations, view the media that's being shared, and report anything or remove any imagery or videos that they're not comfortable with. And what we're hoping that does is prompts conversations between children and parents. And that's really what we're trying to do with Kinzoo, is use technology as a way to bring the family together, open up conversations. Parents can be positive mentors and teach their kids what it means to be a good digital citizen in this day and age.
Superb, amazing. The way I found out about your awesome messenger was through Twitter, and I just wanted to know what was the response. I think you've launched the beta version, and now that the idea has been shown to the rest of the world, what is the rest of the world telling you in US and Canada? I think it's available in those two countries right now.
Yeah, right now, US and Canada. Yeah, so I'd say so far it's been very positive through the course of really ideating to designing and ultimately building the messenger. I've spoken to probably thousands of families by now. I think that we're at a place where it's an interesting time where I think parents are really starting to come to the realization that tech isn't coming, it's arrived. And what that means is I think people are starting to recognize the need to have a tool to introduce their kids to technology in a better way. And the options today feel like it's kind of all or nothing. You open up and you let your child onto some of these platforms of mass scale. So I'm talking about things like TikTok and Instagram and Snapchat, which again weren't designed for kids. Or you try to hold off technology altogether, which my concern with doing that is eventually they're going to get on it. So what I want to do is focus in on teaching my children good skills so that when they do get onto social media, hopefully they're valuing the right things and they know how to treat other people and be empathetic and things like that. So I would say throughout the course of speaking to families, people are really starting to understand that need a lot more. We've involved a lot of families in designing the product and doing some research and usability studies. Again, really focused in on serving up a good user experience. Kinzoo in its initial iteration was actually much more video focused, and we actually moved to full-blown messenger where you can share text, emoji, audio, or video and photo messages. And the reason we did that was based on a lot of the early feedback that we got from families. And then the other thing that really came out of that too was a desire to connect the entire family, so the extended family, uncles, aunties, grandparents, cousins with children. And really that came about. So we had to look at other ways to manage those workflows, which were quite challenging because you're starting to open up the platform a bit. But again, we wanted to do it in a very managed and secure way.
Superb. There is a major ongoing discussion which is related to screen time, and there are different theories about it, and many experts are pro, many are against. What are your views on it, and how does Kinzoo manage this discussion?
Yeah, I spent a lot of time looking into the concept of screen time. Obviously, we read a lot about it, and typically, as is typical in the news, I think most of what we hear is kind of on the negative side. People are worried about the effects of it and things like that. So, when designing Kinzoo, there were a lot of things that I wanted to do. I wanted to make sure that Kinzoo was going to be a safe product, and not only from the obvious things of not letting children connect with strangers, but I was also aware of some of the dark patterns and kind of manipulative feature sets that some platforms use to kind of be sticky. And I started doing a lot of research into that. And ultimately, I kind of went down a rabbit hole. And I came out the other side having done a lot of research and was much more clear on what I wanted to include in Kinzoo, but more importantly, what I didn't. Um, but what's important is I came out the other side and I thought it was so interesting. And I thought I had learned so much, and other parents would take an interest in what I learned. So I actually started the process of writing a book, and went through the publishing process, got published, and the book actually launches September 24th. And the book is called Screen Captured. And at the conclusion of the book, what I came to was basically the question that I get often is how much time should I allow my child to be on a screen? And what I tell parents is, I know they mean well, but it's actually the wrong question. So it's much more important what children are doing on those screens than how much time they're spending. And in the book, what I basically do is differentiate screen time into positive screen time, where children are connecting with people close to them, they're being creative, they're learning, they're collaborating with friends, which I think are all positive activities. And then I separate out what I call screen captured, which is much more when we're being manipulated and subtly kind of pushed by the bigger platforms, typically because they want to get you on the platform, keep you on the platform, and show you ads. And really, um, I think making that distinction between the two has really helped me as a parent. And I think a lot of other parents could kind of benefit from just kind of understanding what's happening under the covers. And I hope simplifying those decisions a little bit, and understanding that, you know, if my daughter is spending 2 hours online connecting with friends or grandparents, I'd much rather have that than even 5 minutes of chasing likes on Instagram, let's say. So that's really where the book goes, and what it's trying to educate, and really how I feel about screen time as a whole.
Awesome. I would love a signed copy, and maybe that's the next interview we do whenever the book is coming out. And we'll
Definitely,
ensure
we
lots
will
of
get one
people
to you.
to read it in India.
Mhm.
Amazing. Speaking about India, when do you plan to come to the largest democracy in the world? I mean, it's very exciting for the rest of your other platforms. But any plans for India? There are lots of Indians in Canada and lots of Canadians
Yes,
in India. In fact, we
yes.
work very closely with the Canadian embassy as well. So, any plans there?
I would say, in all honesty, nothing imminent, of course. We're trying to get a successful launch here in Canada and the US first. What I will say about India and the Indian market is I have stayed abreast of basically a number of happenings in India, and I think India has proven itself to be a real leader on the concept of child safety on the internet. So I think the TikTok example, so India banning TikTok for a time, and forcing change, and forcing the platform to address some things that could have exploited children, or made them susceptible to potentially online predators, etc. I know that India forced them to close some of those loopholes, and I view that market as a real leader in what's happening with kids' safety online, and so it is a market that we're definitely interested in. Obviously, it's a large market. To your point, we have a large community here in Canada, and yeah, I think that it's a very interesting market. So nothing imminent, but it's certainly one that we're interested in, and we'd love to, as soon as we kind of prove out the concept here. Um, One of the benefits of Kinzoo, I think, is it can be a global product, and what that means is we're going to start looking at other countries that we can start to come into, and that will start with uh, really doing a lot of research and understanding what measures, regulations are already in place, what might potentially be coming down the pipe, how we can be a leader, how we can work with regulators and people in government and influential organizations like yourself to do things right and make sure that we're coming in again back to our values of we want to grow, but we want to do it in the right way. So that's really what the focus is.
Superb. Yeah, I mean, whenever you plan to come here, please, we'll be happy to give our advice, knowledge regarding the space, and we'll be superbly excited. So, just as a closing question for about our 20,000 viewers, what are the updates people should look forward to from Kinzoo? Is there any hidden secret you can share for your first interview from an Indian, I'm presuming? For the viewers?
Yeah, I would say, we've got a significant product backlog. We've got a lot of ideas, but what I'm most excited about is starting to build community around Kinzoo. So really get parents and families onto the app. And what we want to do is really engage with them and learn what they want to have next. So we certainly have some ideas on our side. We definitely want to lean into things that we want Kinzoo to be a catalyst for shared family experiences is something that we say. And so we're trying to kind of think of different ways to bring that to market. And so we're really leaning into some feature sets that are going to allow children to be a little bit more creative and then share their creations. So we're really excited to have in flight a drawing tool where children are going to be able to draw pictures and then share them with family. Children are going to be able to create stories and start to share them with families. So those are some things that we have in flight. They're not imminent, they're coming down the pipe, but things like that are really exciting, where basically we can use tech as a way to bring people together, to really bring out the creativity of children, give them a means to share their creations with the people closest to them. And basically we really want to engage with families and hear other ideas on how we can do that.
Amazing. I'm doing a digital parenting open house this Saturday, and I'll make sure that everybody who comes to the open house will certainly find out about your messenger and give you some feedback. So best of luck, man. It was a pleasure chatting with you, and I really, really look forward to Kinzoo being leader in the online safety space for children and bringing families together. So keep up the great work, and our best wishes to your whole team, and keep on doing what you're doing.